What loophole did you exploit for years before someone found out? Story 1. My local Groupon website had always a 30 discount coupon that changed every day. Once a month, you would get one in the mail. Coupon was processed on top of the normal 40 discounts that Groupon has in restaurants, so it was a real 70 discount. I noticed that it always started with an L and then 4 numbers. So I wrote a Python script that every day would send me the daily 30 coupon by testing the 999 possibilities against the website API that wasn't properly secured. This took 4 hours to code and less than 20 minutes to run. That year, we had dinner at restaurants like if we were middle class. Then they patched it, but my GF and I remember it as the golden year. Story 2. The thing we clocked in on when I worked at Kmart would round to the closest quarter hour. So by clocking in 8 minutes early and clocking out 8 minutes after my shift, I got paid for 30 minutes rather than for the 16 minutes. By exploiting this, I was paid 2.5 hours of overtime a week. Cumulatively, during my time there, this added up to about 6.5 weeks of extra pay. I wasn't ever caught, though. Edit. Actually, since it was all overtime, it was closer to 10 weeks of regular pay. Answer. I work in a law firm that bills out at quarter hours, but our policy is to round up once we hit 7 minutes on a particular task. Sensible policy and practice, but it means theoretically I could bill 51 hours in a single day if I could complete 205 discrete tasks that each take exactly 7 minutes and do them back to back to back for 24 hours straight. Ridiculous, of course. But these are the kind of dreams that get a lawyer ahead in this world, Edit. This got a lot more attention than I expected. So just want to clarify. This is a funny thought experiment. I have never billed more than 24 hours in a day. Never mind 50, and don't anticipate it. On balance, I round down and lose more time than I round up and gain. Story 3. I worked with servers who would collect the coupons printed in the paper. Then when a customer paid cash, they'd apply the coupon and then close the check. Extra 5 several times a day. I only realized what they were doing close to the time I left. Working for chain restaurants is a special hell full of special devils. On a related note, I once worked for a restaurant where I got called in because a customer called to complain about being charged more for tip than he left. I double-checked the tips, and at checkout, the manager double-checks the tips. I had to go apologize to the man at his business. I realized only years later that the managers can alter tip amounts, and one or more of them was adding a few bucks to tips here and there to servers' tip-out amounts before closing the checkout, and then giving the server the actual amount while keeping whatever amount they added. I'm pretty sure one of the managers was a psychopath and drove a super expensive car, so it seemed plausible. I work in the film industry and used to work in the hospitality industry. Hospitality industry was shadier by far. Waiters living off coupons and managers skimming tips. And you wonder why chain restaurants are a special hell. The hospitality industry is a wild west where the sneakiest survive. Story 4. I never once clocked out for lunch. For 10 years. That's 1,300 hours of overtime worked. No one ever said anything, and it only ended when we got new clocking software. Story 5. There was this thing for T-Mobile called T-Mobile Tuesdays, and every Tuesday they would give you stuff offers. Well, one week they offered a free Whopper at Burger King. I used it, and a few weeks later they gave it again. But I noticed the code was the exact same one. So me and my fat-ass brain thought, what if I can screenshot it and use it every Tuesday? So I did, and it worked. I eventually started to use it on days that weren't even a Tuesday. It was fun while it lasted, but Burger King removed the offer. Story 6. In the 80s, the 7-Eleven in my city had a promotion where if you brought in 4 proofs of purchase, which you would cut off a Slurpee cup, then you'd get a free Slurpee. We would just walk down the train tracks that were behind the 7-Eleven and collect 100 discarded cups every day. Every single day, minimum 50 cups, but almost always triple that. It took us maybe 3 or 4 minutes to cut out the proofs of purchase and stick them to the coupons which they handed out by the thousands. Then we'd sell the completed coupons for half the regular Slurpee price to neighborhood kids. We made hundreds of dollars that summer before they ended the promotion. It's a lot of work for an adult, but for a kid, that's baller money. Story 7. Not years, but when I was broke and had just relocated to a new city, I couldn't afford Wi-Fi for a few months. The first weekend I was laying around my apartment playing on my phone, and I noticed there was a Wi-Fi network in range that was named Gandalf. Well, I attempted to join, and after being asked for the WPA, without hesitation, I plugged in You Shall Not Pass and was surfing the web for free for the next few months. Story 8. Used to work at Redacted like 7 years ago, and they used to print these receipts where if you filled out a survey, it would give you a 6-digit code, which you could then exchange for a free drink. However, when you gave in the receipt with the code, we would just toss it in the garbage and then give the free drink. So over a shift, I would just keep all the survey receipts when people didn't want them, write random numbers on them, then keep a wallet full of free coffee. Since I already got tons of free drinks, I would give them to homeless people and explain it was good for a free coffee. Probably gave away like 100 free drinks. Answer: they did the same thing at my buddy's coffee shop, and he would save all the receipts and give them to a couple friends to fill out and use. We would always write glowing recommendations about him on the survey, and after a month or so of doing this, he actually got a promotion due to all of the positive feedback about him. It was pretty comical. He was costing the business money and got a promotion out of it. It was one of the big chain shops, so I didn't feel the least bit guilty. Story 9. Used to work for the BBC. They have, as you'd expect, their entire archive digitized. I was working on some cloud stuff, so needed access to it to check some access rights. This was literally everything ever shown on the BBC ever downloadable in a ton of video and audio formats. iPlayer is just a fraction of what was in that archive. Took them about 6 years after I left to remove my account. So 6 years free access to probably the largest TV and movie database around Edit. Blimey, that was a lot of activity while I was asleep. For those asking, I used it mainly to watch documentaries. I'm a bit of a history bore, so would just search something like World War I and see what popped up. You could download as video or audio. You drop stuff out as MP3s and listen to it in the car. Yes, it was called Redux, and good to see other ex-BBCers who had access for years. Yes, you have to pay for a TV license in the UK. Yes, it's crap to be forced into it, but that does mean there are 0 adverts on the channel, which is nice when you're watching a program. Oh, and yes, BBC these days also stands for something else. Hilarious. Edit 2. No, I don't still have access. That was kind of the point of the whole thread. Please stop messaging me asking me to download stuff for you. Edit 3. Yes, of course, you don't have to have a TV license. I meant more. Even if you only want to watch one program one time, you have to have a whole year. I support a pay-as-you-go subscription model. 6 years of free access to the entire BBC archive? That's the ultimate subscription dream. Too bad in real life you still have to pay the license fee. Story 10. When we moved into our new house, we put our trash out like everyone else. And routinely, it was taken every Wednesday morning for 12 years. One afternoon, we heard the neighbors complaining about the increased cost of trash removal and learned it wasn't free at all. We thought it was county-sponsored the whole we lived there. We called the trash company, explained the mistake, and offered to make amends. They seemed disinterested, but just took our name and address down and told us they'd begin billing. They never did. We stayed another 10 years before selling the house and never paid for trash service. Hey, we tried. Story 11. Many, many years ago, I was the manager at a Texaco station. This was circa 2004-ish. We didn't have electronic dispensers. They were all analog, although the prices were controlled from a computer in the office. Whenever we had a price increase, we had to close the station for about 10 mins, as it took that long for the dispensers to update to the new price. I happened to be on the forecourt during an upgrade and picked up a pump to see what price was being shown. I very quickly put it back down again and ran to get my car. During the update, petrol was priced at 5 PD per liter. I filled my tank for less than 5. At the time, our receipts only showed the pump number, type of fuel, and the amount due. There was nothing about the price per liter or the quantity dispensed. After that, I don't think I spent more than $50 in total for petrol across a few years. Story 12. Worked at a grocery store as a cashier for about 5 years, and they had a reward system where you scan a points card every purchase and eventually end up getting back about one of the money you spend. But every time a customer didn't have a points card and didn't want one, those potential points would go to waste. I couldn't scan my own card, so I went to a different location and signed up for a new card with a fake name. Then I just photocopied the barcode from my points card and taped it to the bottom of my wrist. So for a few years, every time I had a customer that didn't want to become a member, I rolled up my sleeve for a second and scanned my wrist, and all their points would go to my untraceable fake account. After it was all said and done, by the time I quit that job and moved on, I walked out of there with thousands of dollars toward free groceries. Story 13. My old job, I worked at a pretty large gym, gold level, like the third highest level. Monthly fee was $79 for the gold membership, but employees got a free diamond membership. Worked there for a year and a half before I quit, but my account was never deactivated. Been going there for a while, completely free. Still not found out. Diamond membership is like $200 a month. Story 14. Back in the day, I built a red box out of a Radio Shack phone dialer and made free long-distance calls for literally years. Payphones back then made a different sound for each denomination of coin that you put in, and the red box just made that sound into the mouthpiece to fool the phone into thinking it was getting real money. Weird, stupid trick, but worked almost all of the time. Story 15. At my old job, we had a vending machine in the basement that gave change back when you bought something. Sometimes it gave more than you paid. No one used this machine as the basement was being reconstructed, but it was regularly filled. Edit. Someone asked this. It went on for about a year and a half, and I don't know what happened to the machine. It was just gone one day. Someone could have caught on. Or it could have been because construction was finished. I probably made $500, $700 in cash back. And at one point, I actually had a sack of coins. Story 16. In high school, our PE grade was based on improvement. We took a skills test at the beginning and another at the end, and your grade was based on how much you improved. So once I learned that, I always sucked at the first test and then did miraculously better at the second. So I had a massive improvement and thus a better grade. Story 17. When we had a daily limit of 1 hour on our AOL account, my sister figured out if you unplug the phone line during your session and log back in it, reset your hour. Answer. Couldn't leave this thread until someone had the decency to mention AOL. Remember receiving those endless free trial CDs in the mail? You could keep signing up for accounts with minimal changes to your username so that friends could find each other after an absence. If I recall, certain people would milk for extra time when they received a prompt for billing information. All you needed was a valid bank routing number. The actual account number could be totally made up. Sigh. I remember when getting an email was a big deal, like a letter from a pen pal. Story 18. Delivery broker sites. Found out one delivery company never knew how many or how much each parcel they were collecting weighed, so used to send large parcels for fraction of the cost. They have gone out of business now. Story 19. Does this count? Those cigarette vending machines were so crappy back in the day that you could spam press the change eject button without having put money in it, and it would spit out like $5 to $6. But at some point, they changed them out. Story 20. I used to drive to university for undergrad, where parking on campus was 15-day. When you entered the lot at the automatic gate, a machine issued you a parking ticket, and the gate would raise to let your car in. I guess to prevent excessive calls to parking security, the entry ticket would also let you out the exit gate for up to 10 minutes after ticket issue. After that, you had to pay the $15 for the whole day. We somehow learned that if you placed a laptop on the ground exactly where a car would be when a ticket was issued, it would trigger the gate to go up, and with it, a new entry ticket was issued. The new ticket was good for 10 minutes. If you hustled to your car, you could leave with the new ticket. Had free parking for all 4 years of undergrad. Felt good to save hundreds on parking after being gouged thousands for tuition. Story 21. Not really for years, but I used to make tons of money on coupons driving for Pizza Hut. I lived in an area that didn't tip for shoot, and one on delivery, this lady gave me a coupon after having paid and said, whatever it takes off the price, keep it as a tip. So I started answering the phones as often as I could. This was before online ordering. Take the customer's order, tell them the total, and hang up. Then I'd apply whatever coupon I could find that fit their order and print out the ticket. It only worked when I was the closing driver because you have to remember the total you told them. But it wasn't uncommon to get 15 whatever they tipped for driving a half mile down the road using this method. Answer. I can relate to this one. When I delivered ages ago, a particular manager would do this all the time and split the cash with the closing driver. He had a whole system for it. Sometimes he'd straight up cancel orders after delivery for cash orders or manager comp a pizza, etc. Definitely crossed the line into theft. I think he just split the cash so he had co-conspirators instead of tattletales. Story 22. At our university, each student had a quota of around 50 pages per month you could print in the computer labs for free. After that was used up, you had to pay. However, this credit system only worked on the Mac and Windows machines. This was before everyone and their dog had their own laptops. Down the hall was a Solaris computer pool, which nobody ever used, where they didn't get this quota software to run. So the students that knew about this and were willing to deal with the not-so-user-friendly Solaris systems got to print as much as they liked for free. Story 23. Parked in a reserved space that never had a car in it at work. It eventually became mine because I just kept parking there. Answer. Kind of reminded me of a lab course I had in college. It was a supplement to another course and happened only once a week. There were 2 options this session, and they had different instructors. I was assigned to the first one, but the lecturer was just god-awful. I knew that their poor teaching was going to cost me a grade, so I asked to be moved to the other session in the hopes the instructor was better. They said there was no availability and I couldn't move, so I started just showing up to the other one. Initially, I was getting my test back with big red letters saying, not assigned to this session or something like that, but they eventually gave up and let me just stay. Story 24. There is a mall beside where I work that has 3-hour parking limit, work charge for parking. I took my car for auto servicing at Canadian Tire there one time and noticed that they used a slip on the dash to identify the car as one worked on by Canadian Tire and free to park there for the day. I photocopied the slip and parked there daily for over a year and a half before I was caught. One day, Canadian Tire called me confirming that I was doing what they thought I was. They asked me to move before I got towed. Never parked there again after that. Story 25. Didn't do this myself, but a friend explained this to me 10 years after actually doing it due to fear of reprisal. He and another friend created a band and listed their music on Microsoft Zune around 2006 or so. This was during the time that iPods were incredibly popular and Microsoft was trying their hardest to get a bigger piece of the market. They were pushing the Zune hardware device as well as their own music store, throwing tons of cash to try and catch up. This included signing some artists to release their music only on Zune. Additionally, this included paying artists significantly larger payments per song play on Zune devices, as well as simply online through a web browser or desktop application. I'm told they paid 20-30 times what Apple was paying in some circumstances. So my friends quickly created jumbled crap music that apparently sounded like random sounds. They created several albums worth of not even shoot music, but just jumbled noise to the point that they had maybe 6 albums of songs. They then bought several old shoot computers. They then plugged them in at a few different apartments and ran VPNs, which allowed them to show up as having different IP addresses. They then played their shoot songs on repeat for months. They made several $100,000 before finally received a cease and desist letter from Microsoft. It got to the point where they were traveling for months at a time, while their computers were on back home repeatedly playing their terrible nonsense music playlists and effectively pouring money into their bank accounts. Said that at one point they made into Zune's top 25 most played artists, at which point they got spooked and slowed things down a bit, creating music from random noise and cashing in until Microsoft sent a cease and desist. That's not a loophole. That's a business plan straddling genius and insanity. Story 26. My family used to go to this campground in the summer and rent a little cabin for like a week. In the main building, there was a little arcade, mostly older games, and a foosball table, and an air hockey table. What most people didn't know was the air hockey table was broke. If you put quarters in, you could push the plunger to start the machine and then get your quarters back if you did it just right. A couple of years in a row were super fun because me and one other kid that knew would keep air hockey going for the entire time. The arcade would be filled with kids who would often play other games while waiting their turn at air hockey. They must have found out after a few years though, because one year we went back and it was fixed. The arcade was also a complete ghost town, and the campground made no money off it after that. That's when I fully realized and understood the concept of a loss leader at like 13 years old. Story 27. Way back when, I did the grocery shopping for my large family as a teenager. Mom didn't drive, Dad didn't shop. I drove, so she sent me for groceries. Deal was, I could keep the coin part of the change from the purchase for doing the shopping for the family. Didn't take me long to figure out to ask for a 10 roll of quarters each time when I was given change. Went on for a few years. Mom didn't know about it until I fessed up in my 20s. You little shoot, she said while laughing. I miss her. Story 28. It's a small one, but in high school I didn't want to wear glasses while playing football. They only had glass contacts back then, and we couldn't afford them. So I memorized the standard eye chart. The line you needed to read was DEFPOTEC edit. Fix the eye chart. Missed an E. Story 29. One week, the local Chick-fil-A put a coupon in a local coupon magazine flyer, which was buy one, get one free, any item on the menu. Next to that coupon, they had a 50 off any menu item. I carefully checked, and neither coupon mentioned cannot be combined with any other offer anywhere on it. So I ran out to the local grocery store and grabbed a stack of these flyers. Sure enough, the next week the offer was gone, but it was too late to stop me. I spent almost 2 years as a grad student living almost exclusively off of 128 count nugget platters that I would get for 25 of the cost, first half off, second free. Place went under new management, and they put up a sign saying they would no longer be accepting those coupons. Not entirely sure if that was due solely to me or if anyone else was pulling the same thing. I had about 20 coupon pairs left when they shut it down. Answer: I had a similar thing with my friend in canned tuna. We were shopping after our gym visit and came across some incredibly cheap tuna, not even on sale. I think an ordinary can cost something like 1.5 USD, but this was like 30 cents. So naturally we bought like 30 cans each on multiple occasions, and a few weeks later the price had gone up to something like 1.3 USD instead. I'd like to believe we were the culprits of that. Story 30. Years ago, I was a season ticket holder for an awful NBA team. My tickets came electronically via PDF. I had okay seats in the upper part of the lower bowl, but nothing great. Anyway, on nights where I knew it would be empty, which was most nights unless a superstar like Kobe or LeBron was in town, I would use the full version of Adobe Acrobat to edit the PDFs to indicate a much better seat location than mine. The barcode still scanned just fine because I didn't mess with it, but when the usher took my printout, all he saw was that I was sitting on the floor. Got away with it for years until the team actually got good for a while, and the place was packed. Story 31. Wedding Registry Department Store had a program where you would receive a discount of 20 off registry items for a year after wedding date, and you could continue to add whatever items you wanted to your registry within that year. But you could not access the special registry discount online. You could order items online with whatever other sales were on and bring the receipt into the store. They would refund the 20 in person, or maybe they refunded the whole amount then recharged the 80. Anyways, then you're done. The first time after I did this, I got an email notification saying my gift card was on the way. I called customer service saying I was confused at this email, as I had already received my wedding registry discount refund in person at the store and hadn't ordered any other gift cards. They told me not to worry and it was fine, probably just a system glitch. Well, a gift card arrived in the mail for the original purchase amount, so I just continued to use the program per their instructions, and every time a gift card for the full original amount would arrive in the mail. Right around when my year was up, I heard they were discontinuing, significantly changing the program. Wonder why, and how many other happy couples received duplicate refunds. I even tried to tell them. My China collection thanks them. Getting a discount and a gift card for the full amount over and over. Someone in marketing definitely dropped the ball. At least the China collection looks fit for royalty now. Story 32. There used to be a third-party warranty you could get at Newegg that was called replacement or refund. It was for laptops that were under $500. The warranty cost like $75 for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, I would file a claim for whatever small thing was wrong with the laptop, headphone jack, card reader, bad key, etc. I would send it to them, and they would refund me the full $500. Then I would just buy a different laptop and get the warranty again. I rolled the same $500 for 3 different laptops. I basically rented a laptop from Newegg for $37 per year. Story 33. I had moved to an apartment and wanted to transfer my internet to the new place. As I got on the phone with the company to transfer everything, I found out that I had internet, but I was not getting billed at all. The account was still active, and my connection was working great, so I didn't do shoot. This went on for 2 straight years until I moved out. I turned the equipment in and got a statement for zero balance. No one said anything. Shoot was supposed to be $55 a month. I'm assuming the girl that transferred my server to fudge up somehow. Story 34. Me and my friends used to sign into each other's PSN accounts, back in the PS3 days, to download each other's DLC. We'd pay for one each, then get all the rest for free. Think Sony found a way to stop you doing it by the time the PS4 came out, though. Story 35. Printers at the university had a flaw that let you print out any number of pages while just paying for a single page. I told too many people about it, and they eventually fixed the problem, but I was able to print for really cheap and save a ton on printing. I normally am not the kind of person to do this, but our professor made us print out 20-page state diagrams instead of just submitting them electronically, and I wasn't going to pay for that. Story 36. My Spanish homework in high school would often have 3 possible answers, while allowing 3 attempts by default, so you could trivially get a perfect score. I got through 3 years of Spanish class with that, and I don't think the teachers have realized that loophole even to this day. Story 37. I went to a sporting goods store and they asked me for my phone number when I was paying. I was in a bad mood and didn't want to fight with the clerk, so I told them our local area code 55112, which is the old number for directory assistance. Clerk accepted it and I left. When I checked my receipt, I had a huge number of loyalty points because apparently a ton of other people did the same thing. I called the office the next day and switched the account to my new address. A half dozen times over the next few years, I went and got free stuff with all the points that I kept racking up as one of their most loyal customers. Edit. Wow. I've never had a comment blow up like this before. Thanks, everyone. Totally made my day. Story 38. I grew up down the street from Universal Studios and went there every day after middle school. Eventually, we learned to go into the VIP line for rides, which nobody was ever in. When the guy stopped us and asked us for our VIP tickets, we just told them a high-up employee named Rick should have called it in. After 2 seconds on the radio trying to verify, every employee just gave up and let us through. We skipped lines for years with that method, and eventually ride attendants came to know us and just let us through. It was beautiful. One day we got bold, though, and snuck into the studio area. Guards caught us and asked us who we were with. We told him our fictional Rick told us we can be here. Well, the guards took radio verification way more serious and managed to get a real Rick on the line. We waited for Rick to show up, knowing we were busted. Rick showed up. Turns out he was actually the backlot manager at the time and gave us a strange look. The security guard asked us if we were with him, and this dude said yes. He took us aside and asked us what we were doing, and we told him we just love film and the studio atmosphere. He loved that 2 young kids were interested in his job and began taking us all around to the studios, allowing us to sit in on tapings of various shows and so on, giving us a free pass to come back anytime, and also the VIP line access. Inventing a fake employee to skip lines, only to end up with a real Rick and backstage access. That's next-level social engineering worthy of Ocean's 11. Story 39. Spoon's old menu. If you ordered 2 sides of half rack of ribs and a portion of chips, it would work out cheaper than if you ordered the ribs meal. You gotta sacrifice the 2 or 3 of onion rings you get with the meal. But instead of a dash of chips, you'd get a whole basket. And it was a couple quid cheaper. Story 40. Circa late 80s. You could make a long-distance collect call from a payphone and charge it to a private number. The operator would call the other number to confirm. We'd ask the operator to call the number of another payphone nearby and have a friend authorize the call. Free long distance for almost a year. Answer: if I remember it correctly, I heard about it, never did it. In the early 90s when I was in high school, folks would call somebody from the payphones in the school by the cafeteria and hang up right as the first ring started. The person that they called would 69 back to the payphone, and the person in school got their quarterback. It was going on so often that my school, my senior year, had the payphone switched to allow no incoming calls. Then it switched to the paperclip trick that I and other folks used to get a free call when we didn't have any change. But that just led to the payphones getting pulled from school. Story 41. Obligatory, not years, but I can't believe I got away with it. My mom gave me $20 to buy a big thing of a certain brand of cat food, which normally costs $10.99. Now here's the thing. When I entered the store, I was given a coupon for 5 off that particular brand of cat food. The store was also doing 5 off the type of cat food I entered for. I got to the till and the food was priced at $5.99. I handed over my coupon and it was scanned so that the food was 0.99p. I couldn't believe my luck because normally it says, not for use in conjunction with any other offer. But here's the real kicker. The lady behind the till gave me another coupon so you can bet your goddamn life I went round again and left the store with $22.98 worth of cat food for $1.98 with a third coupon in my hand. The only reason I didn't keep exploiting the loophole was because I had to carry it all home on my BMX edit. Thanks for the awards, guys. I didn't expect to get this sort of response. For anyone who wants a bit of backstory, I was about 1201 Neo living in southern England, buying $22.98 worth of cat food for $1.98. That's not a loophole. That's kid-level magic most adults couldn't pull off. And hauling it all home on a BMX? Legendary. Story 42. Not really a loophole, but more so employees that didn't care, weren't trained well. Saw a movie back in high school and midway through the audio cut out. The theater handed out vouchers to everyone so they could come back and see another movie. I ended up just flashing the voucher to the ticket takers for months and just walking in. Eventually, someone told me I was supposed to use the voucher to buy a new ticket at the window. Probably saw dozens of movies by doing this LOL. Answer: nice. I used to work at a movie theater. Same deal. Problem with the movie, they would hand out literally a red raffle ticket to the customers to come back free next time. No serial number or anything. You could bring that to the door, we would put it in the box, and you get in free. People were supposed to tear the ticket, but they didn't. They would drop it in the box, then take it out later and give it to their friends, etc. The gift that kept on giving. Mid to late 90s. Story 43. In my middle school, they had a Snapple machine. Someone figured out if you plugged it back in, and pushed a button you could get a free Snapple. It lasted for a few weeks until the Snapple machine guy came to refill it, opened the machine, and yelled $11 at the top of his lungs. The machine was moved in such a way that you couldn't reach the plug anymore. Story 44. I had a killer racket in school where I would buy the graduating classes, use textbooks for like $5, and then sell them to a third-party bookseller in the next town over, who would pay me between $25-30 for each one. Eventually, people started asking questions, and others figured out the deal. Answer: I had a similar experience. My school textbook store was required to buy books back at 50 of what they sell them for. However, they don't have to be bought from the textbook store in order to be bought back. I'd buy cheap used books from Amazon for $5 to $10 and see back to the campus bookstore for $15.50, depending on the book. STI going on, and a great way to turn a quick profit each semester. Story 45. HP used to have an employee shop where they sold all of their stuff at 50-70 discounts to employees. Remarkably, you didn't need to log into anything. If you had the URL, you could place an order, whether you were an employee or not. Delivery was also free and came with the standard HP warranty. Naturally, I listed everything they sold on Amazon for marginally less than everyone else. Made about $5K from that in the second year of uni. Story 46. There was a machine at an arcade similar to Dave & Buster's called Round 1. One day I'm there with a group of friends and I go to the prize area. I see 3 kids with Funko Pop dolls stacked over their heads, headed to the register. I jokingly ask what their secret was. They won't tell me, so I said I'd tell them my ticket-making secret in exchange. Mine sucked. They inform me there's a machine giving more tickets than normal. I go find it, and it's one of those mobile games turned arcade machines that no one would ever play. I play it once and get 700 tickets for probably $0.50. To put in perspective, a 3DS was 40,000 tickets. I play it for about an hour and get enough for a 3DS. We got so good at the game, we'd win the jackpot every time, and it'd give us 6,000 tickets. It would take 15 minutes for the machine to just count it all. Long story short, my friends and I stayed all day the next day and made enough tickets to get 2 PS4s, 2 Wii US, and 2 3DSs. It was such a lame game. No one ever bothered to try and play it, besides us. They eventually found out later that day as they walked over to me while I was playing to observe the game. I just walked out, drove to a town over just to be safe, and redeemed all my tickets. TLDR, got 6 consoles for about $80. Finding a broken arcade game and cashing out consoles for $80. Someone just completed the real-life side quest, Become an Arcade Legend. Story 47. Local casino issued a 20 free play coupon in the newspaper with no expiration date. I talked to the newspaper delivery guy and asked him about that copy, and he told me he's got 100s of them in the van as they were a few days old now. I got all of them, clipped out the coupons, and proceeded to make $19.50 every day after work for around 500 or so days. Not quite years, but pretty darn close. The casino never printed a coupon without expiration, 1 per customer rules ever since. Story 48. My aunt and uncle were trash collectors both professionally and as a hobby. My mom had pulled one of her epic fudge-ups again, and we ended up living with them. Most of our food came from the trash. However, Domino's had a reward system where the boxes had blue or red tabs depending on the size of the pizza. Collect enough tabs, get free pizzas. Aunt and uncle collected thousands of those tabs. We ate pizza every weekend for months before the company caught on, and they put an end to it. I was 11 at the time, but I remember hearing that their address was banned for life from delivery. I'm pretty sure Domino's also stopped the promotion shortly thereafter. It was awesome while it lasted. Story 49. This was back in the 90s, but many major websites used to have affiliate click link subscriptions you could make and put them on your website and get paid a few cents for each click that was made. Now, at the time, me and my buddy were getting into learning stupid JavaScript alert prompt prank pages at the time. I wish I remembered the website. It was something like Monkey Coding. Wish I could remember. An early resource for learning to code. Anyway, I changed a lot of the basic annoying prank alert stuff we'd been using into clicking the affiliate link repetitively for me. Now, I wasn't too wise of either coding or network security at the time, but I thought surely it won't count if the same computer, IP, or same few IP addresses have clicked the link thousands of times. Sure enough, for a few months at least, I got checks sent to me for 20-30 USD a month. Not much, but I wasn't even in high school at the time, and was so proud of actually receiving them that I don't think I ever cashed them. I just hung them up on my wall. Story 50. My high school counselors told everyone we needed 2 years of a foreign language to graduate. It was common knowledge. Everyone just listened and took the classes. Everyone. I read the student handbook, and it listed the graduation requirements, and it said nothing about foreign language. I never took one. My friends didn't catch on until senior year, and when I told them, they warned that I would be in big trouble and might not get to graduate. They freaked out. One girl called me an idiot. I showed them the graduation requirements, available for anyone to read in the student handbook or counselor's office. No one ever said a word. I graduated. Always read the terms and conditions, y'all. Story 51. About 10 wires ago, American Eagle distributed 10 off 10 purchase coupons on my campus. No restrictions. I asked nicely, and one of the reps gave me a stack of them. Guess how much socks and underwear were? $10.50. It was years before I ever paid more than 50 woolers for a pair of either. Sunglasses were like $2. Flip-flops. The accessories world was mine for the flaunting. NBSMP, never saw that deal again. Story 52. Years ago, I worked for a company that was just bringing their outside sales force up to speed. Somehow they had overlooked that per diem was being awarded to every remote employee every day, which had previously been classified as travel days, so Tuesdays. It was $75 a day for every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we all just said nothing. It was like this for 2 years. We got this dude on the team from Philly, and from day one, he seemed like he was nice, but just in over his head and in kind of slow. He was a terrible kiss jerk, but more so he seemed somewhat obsessed with being reimbursed for stuff. One day he sends an expense report and accidentally CC'd our whole sales supporting team, which included the CFO. On there was a 235 Atlanta Falcons jersey he apparently needed to wear to an event he had in ATL, and a receipt for Panera Bread on a Saturday. The CFO decided more scrutiny was needed, and so ended our per diem gravy train. See, if by any chance you're reading this, I just want you to know I forgive you, but you really are a dickhead. 2 years of extra pay because everyone kept quiet, until one guy accidentally CC'd the CFO on a jersey receipt. Classic. One clueless coworker can dismantle an entire gravy train. Story 53. The vending machines where I worked couldn't tell the difference between nickels and quarters, so the 1.25 cans of Coke became 0.25 cans of Coke. This went on for over a year until we got a new Coke machine. Price went back up after that. Story 54. I worked at Radio Shack back in college. Sales associates are paid on commission, and cell phones and accessories are the largest income earners. There was this 10, 20, 30 deal where you'd get 10, 20, or 30% off your accessories, depending on the number you bought. As an associate, you'd get 2, 5, or 10 for selling someone on this deal. It was easy to get someone to buy 2 accessories. This was the age where nearly every phone had a proprietary charger, and cases were an easy sell. Anyway, the thing was that the third accessory was tough. I discovered this spare belt clip thing that was basically a replacement part for a bulky Radio Shack brand leather case that came off the clip so you could leave it on your belt while answering calls you'd inevitably get from the ladies with this bad boy on. As it turns out, this 0.99 accessory was in the same category of SKUs for cell phone accessories. So adding it to your cat knocked off an extra 10 from your other 2 accessories, which always paid for itself, and I got an extra 5 for it. Eventually, my coworkers caught on to this, and we were seeking spare belt clips like hotcakes. Our inventory restock is automated, and the system started ordering hundreds of these, our most popular item by far. The loophole wasn't closed until after I had graduated and moved away. Apparently, sales associates got tired of explaining the whole, it actually costs more if you don't buy this plastic piece of crap, so they started just scanning it and not telling the customer or giving it to them. The stupid things started piling up everywhere, and eventually corporate noticed and several heads rolled as a result. Selling a $0.99 belt clip to trigger discounts and commissions? That's not sales. That's the art of gaming the system. Too bad it all collapsed under a mountain of plastic junk. Story 55. I used to work at a grocery store, and we had this era of the steak discounts. Hundreds of coupons for 5 off a steak were just everywhere for some reason. I found out that if I used the self-checkout and bought a steak that was less than 5 while using the coupon, the machine would give me back the difference in change. I ate dozens of free steaks and filled my change jar up nicely. Edit, typical holy shoot, this blew up. Thank you for awards, blah, blah, blah. But seriously, thank you. I've been alone in my basement for months talking to my pet bunny, and today I felt like a goddamn rock star. Story 56. On the original Kindle, you could purchase a book with an expired card and Amazon would send you the book. A minute later, you'd receive a notification saying the payment didn't go through. You had to select something stating you were aware of this, and then they would take the book back. If you hit the home button, it took you out of the notification, and you could continue reading the book, unaware that the payment didn't go through. I did this once a month my junior year in high school. The summer before senior year, I could not do it anymore. Coincidentally, my passion for reading died around that time. Story 57. This is super weird and I haven't thought about it in years, but I suppose it was a loophole. Soda companies used to run giveaways where they would put a code under the cap and then you could enter the codes for points and get free stuff once you had banked enough points. I was a stock boy at a local grocery store and we had to take care of the bottle return machines also. Any loose caps and nasty soda juices would settle in the bottoms of the bags. So on slow nights, we would cut the corner of the bags to drain and collect any loose caps, which I would then wash in the mop sink and take home to bank the codes. I ended up getting some sweet stuff like a few CDs, a zip-up sweatshirt, and even some decent noise-canceling headphones, LOL. Story 58. I used to buy books on Amazon Kindle with a debit card that had no money on it. The transaction would take a little time, but you could download immediately. The problem was if your payment bounced, they would remove the book from your device. So if you downloaded the book, then turned your Wi-Fi off on your device, you could read for free. Story 59. At my current apartment complex, they just changed the laundry machine, so you need to use the Super Shoot Slow app. I found out if you press start on the app and start on the machine, and then back out of the app while it's chatting with the machine will start but won't charge any money. Been washing and drying for free for a few months. App name is similar to Small GS or Small Payments Edit. Others in this thread use this app, so I'm going to hold back the direct name of it, and y'all can use this trick for longer. Story 60. I have always lived in a different city town than where I work. I've also always worked in an industry that gives preference to my coworkers who are parents. I learned early on that when asking for time off, if I listed going out of town as a reasoning, there would be no question or hesitation to grant the time off. Am rarely ever traveling as that label suggests, am merely at my home. In another town, I have one coworker I have told, but the vast majority have yet to ever figure out my system. Story 61. My friend used to restock condom machines in pubs and collect the money from them. The machines would always break and get jammed all the time, but because it was condoms, no one would ever tell someone that the machine ate their money. He would just count how many condoms were gone and give that amount of money to the company and pocket the rest. Edit. I meant to also say he moved on to another job. Apparently, the next person that did it collected all the money correctly and threw all their figures out. Story 62. This topic has been up for a while, so this will probably get lost, but this loophole was amazing back in the 90s. Bought tickets to Neil Young in like 1993 at Story 63. Jack in the Box used to have a get 2 free tacos with any purchase coupon on the bottom of their recipes. A group of my friends found out that we would buy the cheapest item, which was a slice of cheese. We could get 2 free tacos every day for 20. Story 64. Not years, but 2 weeks. I was on vacation in the Dominican Republic with my wife for 2 weeks. At the resort, they would give every adult 20 a day to gamble at their little casino. We would go to the roulette table and put 20 on red and 20 on black. Made 280 those 2 weeks. Story 65. Photoshopped a college parking pass to hang in my rearview mirror, complete with a fake barcode. Even had it laminated. Free parking for 3 years, saved $250 a year. Edit. If I was never caught, does this still count? Story 66. Worked out how to get the jackpot every time on a Connect 4 fruit machine in a pub I used to drink in. It would cost about $5.10 before you get into the bonus round. Then when you did, you'd play a Connect 4 game against the machine. You place the first counter, and then after the machine places the next counter, you mirror the machine's move. Every game ends in a draw, and you win the jackpot, which was 50. The pub landlord removed the machine after around 3 months, as it was regularly empty. Basically paid for my drinking and more for 3 months. Story 67. Wife and I financed a very nice fridge. They did their financing through a bank that sends you a CC after the fact with the item already charged. Card showed up, no balance. Called the card issuer, never been a balance. This was over 6 months ago. Still no balance or record on either of our credit reports. Answer. A similar thing happened to my brother. He bought a mattress online and got it financed. I can't remember the details, but the mattress was shipped out and he never got charged. Both the mattress company and the finance company claim he needs to call the other to sort it out. No balance anywhere. I figure he's done his due diligence by calling both of them and requesting that they take his money, since they both refuse. It's been a year or so, and nobody has come after him. So, free mattress. Story 68. When I was a kid, there was a payphone down the street that if you put your quarter in, made a call, but no one answered, it would give you back 2 quarters. Went there all the time and called home when I knew no one was there to answer. Story 69. When I would commute to work, I would have to pay to park at a nearby lot that would change $5 per day on a prepaid card. When the amount would get low, I would use the ticket machine to reload money onto my card. Well, one day, unknown to me, they were doing a software update right when I reloaded my card with 40 cash into the machine. As a result, it didn't register to new amount on my card, I think my card had something like 10 left. I went into the parking office to complain, but they told me they didn't believe me and that I was out of luck. Well, the next day I used the card, but instead of deducting 5, it instead added 5. So my new balance was 15, and the next day I had 20 left on my card. I used that card for almost 2 years, and the final balance was thousands when it finally stopped working one day. And honestly, I would have let them know about the issue right away if they hadn't been total jerks about my initial 40 issue. Net gain. Story 70. When I was in college, they had this deal where if you signed up for a free trial of Netflix, you could get a 10 gift card code for Papa John's. They didn't even ask for a credit card back then, just an email. So I would just make new email addresses to use and would get a code every time. Not only did I get free Netflix for a while, but I also got a lot of free pizza. Answer. Ha 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 ha. Reminds me of the Papa John's on my campus that if you signed up for a credit card, then you got a free pizza. Huge long lines, and there was always that guy that walked out with the free pizza, whispering, "Just use fake information. This is my third pizza." Well, they got wise that there were hundreds of fake applications, so they started to collect the application, hide it from our view, and ask us to recite our address and social. This was around the time that Mike Jones' Back Then song came out, so needing a random number that I could remember, I would always put 281 K804 Mike Jones, omitting a 0. Mike Jones bought me tons of pizza that year. Edit, ref, story 71. Bank of America would give you 3 cash back points on gas purchases. Back when I did this, I was a heavy smoker and realized by coincidence that if I paid for gas inside and made other purchases, that I would still get 3. So buying like 1 of gas and cartons upon cartons of cigarettes became my thing. Now I don't smoke anymore though, which is even better savings. Story 72 was living near attending our local university. While working full-time in an economy in the midst of a recession, I barely had enough money to pay the bills, let alone eat. Where I live is very well known for its tourist industry casinos, so I had quite a few friends who worked in it would tell me about these massive employee luncheon cafeterias. At that time, there were no ID cards or lanyards to be scanned or checked. All you needed was to find it be dressed appropriately to the employer's dress code. After my friend, I did a dry run on one of those trips. In order for me to find it without getting lost, I would go it alone. For almost 3 years, I had lunch dinner for free, learning the peak service times, the dead zones. Even got along with some of the cafeteria workers and custodial crews. Story 73. Part-time retail worker for big chain. Work gives employees a 5 discount over all purchases, increasing to 10 on store products. Gift cards are store products. So are vegetables and a lot of groceries. By paying $45 on a 50 gift card and then using said card for my shopping, I can purchase $55 in groceries for an effective 19 discount on almost all my essential shopping and 14.5 on everything else. I have on occasion bought a card online on my phone while queuing at the checkout. 4 years strong and still wondering when they'll realize they're giving me a discount on money. Edit 1. No, you cannot purchase gift cards with gift cards. Real money only. They closed that one. Edit 2. Hoo-hoo, awards. Obligatory edit for thanks. Story 74. My first credit card ever when I was 18, many moons ago. I opened a bank account and they sent me a CC. I used it for just shy of 2 years, all kinds of stuff. My first apartment was baller. Never got a bill. Bought nice clothes, systems, subscriptions, food, you name it. Never got a bill. Went to the bank one day to deposit some money and ask when my new card was coming. My old one was about to expire. And they said, "What CC? You aren't supposed to have this." They took it on the spot, never got a bill. Tens of thousands of dollars easily, all for free. Answer. That's similar to when I canceled my internet years ago because I was poor. I was cutting all my expenses and decided I could get by without home internet. Emailed Frontier to cancel, got a reply with a cutoff date. The date came and went, but my internet kept working. I had it for several years before they apparently noticed and tried to bill me. I told them to shut it off, but I wasn't paying because I'd canceled. Fortunately, I still had the emails. I got free high-speed internet for about 4 years because they forgot to shut it off. Story 75. Worked a shoot part-time job with no benefits, career growth, etc. that lets you clock in 10 minutes before and 10 mines after your scheduled shift because it involved a lot of walking. Extra 2.5 HRs per paycheck for virtually no effort. Story 76. Parking meters took credit cards, but they weren't actually connected to a live network at all times. The machine just confirmed the card number was valid and was not expired, then spit out a valid pass. So when my card number got stolen and replaced, I kept my old canceled card. Of course, when the system tried to run the card later, it would be declined. My car and I were long gone by then. Sadly, they wised up and now it charges your card before giving you a pass. Answer: there used to be this app called Free Rice or something on Facebook. Back when it first came out, it was a widget, I think, where you could answer multiple choice questions, and for each one right, you would have a grain of rice donated to a family. While that was quite shoot because a bowl of rice was a ton of grains. So I one day found out while playing that, if I knew an answer 100, I could spam click the answer repeatedly until I got bored, and when the website finally loaded in my selection, it would count as a ton of right answers. I eventually earned about 500,000 grains of rice for some family, if they actually ended up donating it. Edit: just to clear it up, I didn't do this over the course of a single day. I meant I found the loophole one day while playing the game normally. Harmful behavior, the loophole every day after that, though. E2. You Colonel O'Popcorn mentions it was most likely 10 grains per right answer, which sounds way more reasonable. Sorry about that. 1 grain would be hilariously bad. Story 77. My boss was always late, and patients would always show up early for the first appointment of the day. I started letting staff know I would be changing it on the schedule to show our first appointment starting 15 minutes earlier. We ran like clockwork for a year until the doc decided to randomly be on time more often. I had to admit patients weren't late. I had just been shifting the schedule to make things run more efficiently. Story 78. When Lyft first came out, they were giving away free rides up to like 2030, if I remember correctly. All you had to do was refer a friend. So me and my college roommate just made a few email addresses, and somehow my free rides glitched, and I just kind of had free rides for the year. Edit. I remember what caused the glitch. I had lost my debit card that was linked to the account, so I had to cancel it and get a new one. For some reason, Lyft kept processing payments to my old card, but it never came out of my bank account. Story 79. I got tons of free food from Moe's Southwest Grill by doing their online survey daily from my phone and computers at work and home. Then put the codes into the app for points. Did this for a few years. Along with 5 burrito during Mo Mondays, it was a no-brainer. Story 80. Not intentional, but once I found out, I didn't stop. Years ago, I used my card to pay for Xbox Live during a period before I could pick up a manual one-wire subscription. But when I tried to remove my card details, it wouldn't let me and said I had to call MS directly. Being lazy but smart, I decided to just change the security numbers that were saved so it wouldn't process any future payments. And it never did. But somehow I still kept getting Xbox Live access. This went on for about a year and a half before it stopped. I was never contacted about paying anything for what I'd used either. Edit. Holy balls. I did this last night as a throwaway comment and came back to 7.6K upvotes in my first ever awards. You guys rock. Answer. I've been using new emails to sign up for a new Xbox Live account and get the free 1 month of Xbox Live Game Pass for the last year now. Sign up on the new account, swap over to regular account, which now has access to online, and like 150 games due to the new account being on the same Xbox, and rinse and repeat. Doesn't seem to be intended, but it's very easy and simple to do. So why does anyone pay $15 a month when you can easily get it for just 1 of 5 minutes of effort? Story 81. Growing up, I worked at a chain grocery store. They had a policy in place that if an item price label didn't match the scan price in the computer, the first item was free, and any subsequent items would be for whichever price was lower. Every few months, an elderly woman would come in and spend 4 or 5 hours shopping. When she would come up to the register, she would have a full cart and near everything would be free. I had to ring her out a handful of times and only caught a few items overall that she was wrong on. At one point, she found a comforter BBB mislabeled and got it for free, $40.50 sticker price. More than once, the store manager would watch her on the store cameras to ensure she wasn't switching the stickers, but never saw her do anything sneaky, just very calmly looking over every item shelved one at a time. Eventually, the policy changed and she stopped coming in at all. TLDR store managers dislike this one simple trick. Answer. There is a grocery chain that switches their ads out on Wednesday night for the new ad on Thursday. They have a policy if the item rings up wrong, you get the item for free. My local store sucks at pulling down the new ad, so I go shopping on Thursday and just grab all the items that the signs are still up for. I walk out with at least 10 to 12 items every week because they are too lazy. Story 82. When I was in school, they sent us home with a form for our parents to fill in. The idea was to collect updated contact information in case anything had changed, phone numbers, etc. If you were late to school, the school texted your parents to let them know. For myself, the usual punishment was a grounding. I was frequently late, so I filled the form with my own phone number and started to receive the text messages that were intended to tell my parents that I was late. Got grounded far less frequently after that. Answer: when I was in high school, I had to bring a note from my parents if I was late. For whatever reason, my freshman year, my mom was super busy and was just like, oh, sign my name for me. This was the signature of hers they had on file. From that point on, anything she had to sign, I signed her name, and my parents never were the wiser. So once I had a car, I would write myself a note to get out of my last Bell study hall on Fridays for therapy, and I got to leave school an hour early and could take a nap before work or go to the mall instead of sitting in study hall. My parents never knew that I left school early every Friday for the last 2 years of school. Story 83. I don't know if this counts as a loophole, but back when I was an unemployed college student, and before public transport tickets became electronic where I live, I used to cover my ticket in a thin layer of glue stick, so when I validated the ticket, the ink would stay on top of the glue layer. I would then wash the ticket very carefully with water, and the ink would come off. I'd let it dry, and I magically had a brand new ticket. This would last about a week before the ticket started looking too weird. Story 84. I used to live in an apartment across the road from a casino whilst at university. They released an app where if you check in, you get points that go towards free food and drinks. Because I was close enough to the casino, I could just check in without going to the casino itself. Every Saturday, I used to get a free burger, fries, and drink, and watch sport in the sports bar. They eventually scrapped the app. It was awesome considering I was a broke uni student. Answer: I had a somewhat similar one. I worked in a renovated office building that had casino on first floor. Every month, they would send me a promo pack that included 520 free plays. So periodically, I'd go to lunch, put the 20 down on roulette red black, and if I won, take the 20 and leave. Went on for around a year before they stopped sending me coupons. Story 85. Still ongoing. Thanks to a charge card, I was granted top-tier elite status with a hotel chain. I downgraded 6 years ago, but the status remained. The hotel chain went through a merger, but since I had retained the status for over 10 years, I was given lifetime top status in the new program that was created. Story 86. I was really good friends with my building superintendent, Super, at a job I have since left. He was also the super for several other buildings in downtown. My friend the super got a terminal cancer diagnosis, and on his last day at the building, he gives me an envelope with what appeared to be a parking garage card inside. He said, "Fizz, you have been such a great friend. I wanted to give you my key to the kingdom. It should save you a lot of money because it works in every city-owned parking garage in downtown." I left that job in 2012, and to this day, the card still works at over 12 parking garages in downtown. Go see a concert or sporting event? Swipe the card for the arena, no longer the official name, garage. Need to park at the courthouse or city hall garage? Swipe the card. Want to go see a movie or go to a club or park? Swipe, swipe, swipe. Free parking day or night? Bruce, you left us way too soon, but gave me a gift that just never stops giving. Miss you, buddy, and thanks for saving me a ton of money. Story 87. Because I was a good student and rarely got into trouble, I was allowed to have my own phone extension in my room. So if I was out past curfew, I'd call home. When my mom answered, I'd say, "It's for me. I've got it." And she'd think I was up in my room. She never did catch on. Edit. It was 1976. My mom never knew. I know that because I confessed to it years later. She was very shocked and mad, and she grounded me. But I was 40 and had my own house by then. My parents were the early to bed and early to rise type, and my room was a converted attic 2 floors up from the rest of the bedrooms. I often came home after everyone else was asleep because I had a part-time job, so I was used to sneaking in like a ninja. It was a bright yellow Princess phone. And finally, I knew a good thing. So I did not harmful behavior this technique just a few times when it was absolutely necessary, like the time we hitchhiked to see Peter Frampton. Answer: you just reminded me of mine. Back in the olden days, late 90s, cell phone minutes were expensive, and I also had a landline extension in my bedroom for the kids' line that we used for dial-up internet. When my mom told me I had to get off the phone and go to bed, I'd schedule down to the minute a time for my boyfriend to call me back. In order to have it not ring, I'd call the weather line and listen to the forecast on repeat and wait for him to beep in on call waiting. We'd talk till sunup some nights, then arrange for him to pick me up from the school bus stop and I'd ditch out for the first few periods. Ah, young love. Story 88. Kept a canceled credit card in the car for paying for parking on city machines that never actually validated the card. Eventually, word spread, and the city added cellular tech to validate the card. Story 89. There is an app for a local burger chain where it allows you to roll the dice to get a code for a free double patty burger upgrade. It was designed so you could only try it once per day, and it even shows the date of the roll on the code so the cashier could verify it. However, I found out that you can just change the date on your phone and try again immediately. If you got nothing, change it again and just keep going until you get the code. Then when you got the code, you change the date back to current date, and the app updates the code so it looks like you rolled it today. I got free burger upgrades for years until they finally got rid of the feature altogether. I don't know if anyone ever figured out this exploit. They removed it for other reasons. Story 90. I used to go to this Mongolian BBQ spot at the mall that had those thinly sliced frozen sheets of meat that they let you pick yourself, and they cook it for you, so long as it fit in the bowl they gave you. Then choose your veggies, etc. So they used to be kind of folded into like ribbons, so they'd take up more room in said bowl. Well, it's stupid, but I realized if I just used the back of my hand, knuckles, I could kind of punch the folded frozen meat down, and I would back in like a pound of meat when that wasn't what they had intentioned at all, but since it was in the bowl, they had to cook it. So good. Anyways, me and my ex would go like 3 times a week and just get one of those, and it would feed us both pretty good for like 5. Eventually, they caught on after like a year, and one time we went, I proceeded to do the same good old backhanded meat punch in my bowl when one of the workers yelled out to me to get my attention and pointed to my right at a printed paper that had a fist on it saying no to fist meat with a circle and a cross going through it. That was my legacy there, and the food was never the same when it was 99.5 noodles. Me and my ex broke up. That was the only good thing in that old toxic jerk relationship. The fist punch meat hack at Mongolian BBQ might be the most physical loophole here. When your trick becomes so legendary, they ban it with a printed sign. That's a legacy. Story 91. Tudor's Biscuitville once did a promotion at a minor league ball game. Everyone got a coupon for 1 free biscuit sandwich, and it didn't say limit 1 per customer. Attendance was low, so at the end of the game, the guy came up to me and offered basically a box of these coupons and told me to pass them out to my friends. For the next year and a half, my friends and I were rolling around with money clips of free biscuit coupons, passing them out, and getting tons of free food for ourselves. I still think it was weird that at no point did a manager ask why we had so many coupons, or try and tell us that we couldn't get 20 sandwiches at a time for free. Story 92. Delivered pizza for a local place in high school on the weekends. Every weekend I'd have a friend call in and order something to come pick it up at the restaurant instead of having it delivered. When we closed at the end of the night, it'd still be there unpaid for because no one came to get it. I'd take it home every night for free. Story 93. Got keys to a new flat on a Friday afternoon. The place had electric, but it wasn't in my name. Went to the electric company just before closing, and the lady said, "Flat 8, you say? We only have record of 7 flats on that building. Tell you what," glances at the clock, "come back Monday with the serial number on your meter, and we'll get you all hooked up." I never went back and enjoyed free electric for over 2 years until I moved out. Edit to clarify. When I say wasn't in my name, this was originally a large single-dwelling property that had been converted into flats apartments. My one, I guess, was a late addition, and I was the first tenant. It simply wasn't registered to me or anyone. It's also standard here in the UK to pay the individual utility bills to the individual utility companies providing their services. Story 94. It was only once. Bought a game license on Steam for a game which was on a different launcher. Tried out the game, didn't enjoy it, and refunded it. Later, I checked the alternate launcher, and while Steam gave me my money back, they never canceled the license at the other company. Got a game with its newest expansion, 7D, for free. Edit still works, and turns out I enjoyed the game after a while. Double edit, it was ESO Elder Scrolls Online. To be specific, I got the base game Skyrim when it was literally just released for a few days. That's the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're interested, I have a second channel. This is Vancher signing off. See you soon.